This is where you're going to go. Okay, it's on. Okay. And we can wait. Hi, everyone. We'll wait a few minutes. I hope people can hear us, and then we'll see if people come in. Let me close that. All right, that's fine. Okay, so we'll get started. There's probably like a little delay on here. Hey everyone, this is Michelle for Expat Life Mexico here in San Miguel de Allende. Today we're going to be talking about doing business in Mexico. I'm here with my very knowledgeable attorney who has saved my ass in multiple occasions. And I just thought it would be a smart idea to bring him on and talk to him, or let him kind of share certain things with you all, the audience, about business in Mexico, the laws, kind of a lot of the misunderstandings that people kind of have about doing things here. Also just kind of, I think the sense that we have sometimes is it's kind of a little loose, but understanding that, you know, there are a lot of very foundational laws that people need to know about, and it's always a good idea to seek legal advice. So it is Wind Down Wednesday. I'm coming to you from Central Mexico and San Miguel de Allende. We're at his office, so you'll probably hear bells and stuff because we're right in front of the church. I have an amazing view of the church, or we have an amazing view of the church. But what I wanted to say is we'll have bells going off, so hopefully you can hear us. Hi, Mantra, welcome, welcome. And I just wanted to kind of like, you know, talk a little bit first about San Miguel. If you haven't been on my lives before, I'm coming to you from this amazing Spanish colonial city. I've lived here for about 5 years and I absolutely love it here. You know, there are these challenges with having a business. So I think it's important because not everyone who comes here is retired. And there are more and more people and more foreigners that are coming. And it's really important to kind of, you know, educate as much as we can on these topics. So that's the focus today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. And don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't done that yet, please do that. And also share the replay of this video. So without saying a whole bunch more, I just wanted to, well, actually one more thing. It is Wind Down Wednesday, but I do not have wine today. I have water. So we've decided that we're just gonna, we're drinking water today. That's it. So without further ado, I'll introduce Raul, let him introduce himself. And
hi, my name is Raul Ramirez Riva. I am the managing partner of now the biggest firm in San Miguel de Allende, at least on the number of property cases that we manage. I don't think there's any other firm that has so many property cases as us. We specialized in property law because there was a lot of real estate development in the last 6 years in San Miguel, and many of our friends started having issues with real estate. So we started getting involved in the real estate litigation arena, and later on we started evolving into a property or specializing property and taxes firm. So we're pretty big. We have more than 350 cases here in San Miguel open right now. These are cases for people who either bought a property and they can't get their escritura, their title, their deeds, or people who gave a down payment and the property was never constructed. And now they need to get the money back, plus interest, plus penalties, plus attorney fees. And we do this, by the way, not only for the rich people who bought homes that are more than over 5 million pesos. We're also the biggest pro bono firm in the city. From the 350 cases we have, about 250 are similar to pro bono. What we do is we do bill very little, but we bill something to poor people in San Miguel who have the same problem as anybody who bought a 5 million pesos home, but maybe they bought a 300,000 pesos home, but they still don't have their deed, or they don't have, or they actually never gotten the actual home. So we litigate in their behalf. And we also do a lot of victims representations. So we take pro bono and without getting any payment, we take any case of violence against women. We have a very good relationship with the district attorney. So we also follow up on that, and we make sure that victims are protected. And because of all of that, we've actually been of good help to people that are opening a business here in San Miguel. We understand pretty well most of the laws that people that live in San Miguel have to face. And we used to have, before the COVID pandemic, we had an office in Mexico City and an office here in San Miguel. Back then, we used to be more into entertainment. We had 2 or 3 very big clients in Mexico City, actors, and most of our operation was based around providing them services for contracts. We did a lot of contracts back then in that time. After the pandemic, we closed Mexico City for a while. We're focusing in San Miguel, and we should be open again in Mexico City, probably around August. So we'll grow again back to where we used to be. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you about anything that has to do with opening a company here in San Miguel. Not only do we give help to companies in San Miguel, at least we have 35 or so clients who are entrepreneurial. We are also helping ourselves because we have this office with this firm, but we are also the owners of a restaurant. We have a nopal venture, a nopal rural agricultural venture. So we've done business in San Miguel, and we know exactly the laws that apply to each. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Raul. So I want to say welcome to FDM. Thank you for coming, and welcome to Kim J. Thank you so much, Kim. Hey, I don't know if you're here yet or if you are still working on getting here, but thank you for being here tonight. So I've been working with Raul for about 6 or 7 months, and he's been very instrumental because it's been very difficult to kind of get straight information. We were chatting about that a little bit, just the direction that we want to go in tonight. And one of the things that I was explaining to him as a foreigner is we have the challenge of the language, right? And we have the challenge of the lack of knowing. And then I think too, we kind of come in expecting maybe things to be the same as they are, or similar sometimes in certain scenarios as they are in the United States, or maybe we take certain things for granted. But it's really important, and I told Raul this a while ago, like it's a good idea maybe for him to have like I know you have a lot already on your plate in your law office, but to have like a portion of the business that can provide like maybe how to launch your thing in Mexico the right way, right? Mostly maybe here in San Miguel, and maybe later on in Mexico City and wherever else you guys are venturing out to. But I thought it was important to have him explain some of the maybe more foundational things that you should know about. I think some of us that live here, we've heard a lot about RFCs, right? There's always the buzz on Facebook. Facebook is not the place to get your solid information. Really and truly, I highly recommend talking to an attorney that knows what they're talking about. So tell us a little bit about the RFCs, and welcome, Deborah. Thank you.
I think before entering into any legal subject, there's a few things that I need to explain about Mexican law. In the United States, you go to law school after you already did some major studies, right? Mm-hmm. It's a graduate studies program. It's usually about 3 years, and then you take the bar. In Mexico, it's a 5-year program. So the number of classes that you have to take, it's way higher than the classes you have to take as a US lawyer, mm-hmm. Because the Mexican law is more complicated. It's not that we are, it's not that we have to go through more just because we want to do more time studying. It's because it's really like most schools are having troubles to finish their curriculum in 5 years. And it's always another school thinking that legal studies should be a 6-year program. Mm-hmm. So And of course, there's right now many schools in Mexico that are trying to offer 4-year programs, and those are usually frowned upon because it's impossible to make a Mexican lawyer in 4 years. Most of us study 5. I went to ITAM. ITAM is the most difficult law school in the whole country, and it's always top 5. So when they do polling into the different firms in Mexico City and the rest of the country, it's usually top 5 of the best schools for lawyers to study. We only about 400 students enter on first semester, only about 45 graduates after 5 years of studies. So it's a pretty complicated matter. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's impossible to think that a friend of yours in Facebook knows what he's talking about. There's just no way. So when they tell you, no, but I know that this is exactly what you have to do legally, there's no way, unless he went to law school, he did all the research, and he understands that subject, there's no way he can give you an advice that is going to protect you. And the liabilities in Mexico are pretty big, just like in any other country, but they're even bigger because if you don't know the language, you're going to feel that you're being cheated. And maybe it's not that you're being cheated, maybe it's just that the legal requirements were not met, and you could be subject to sanctions, to lawsuits from third parties, to audits by the Mexican tax service. And so when I say this, I really recommend, every case is different. I have a radio show every Thursday, by the way, and I always say this in my radio show. Every case is different. You should talk to a lawyer you trust for each case you have without listening to any general advice. General advice is good to give you an intuition of how to move forward. In the end, you should be sitting with a lawyer that is telling you exactly the next steps that you need to take. And that way, you should be able to limit your liability and have a nice follow-up strategy so that you can open any venture, right? You could be opening a carnitas restaurant on the corner, or you could be becoming the next big real estate developer in the city. The steps wouldn't be so different. You have to put in place a strategy, including a legal consultation to make sure that your strategy fits the legal requirements for the activity you want to take.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that it's like the laws in Mexico are more complicated. Why do you think, or how would you explain that? Because they seem to me, again, I'm going to give you my perspective, and my questions are coming from my perspective, but they kind of seem at times to be different in different states for whatever those reasons are, which is not uncommon in the US at all. But I think with business, it all kind of depends on the type of business. But why do you feel like it's just more complicated overall? Like, what's your...
So one of my very good friends, he's a consul in the United States. And when I went to study law in ITAM, I told him I'm going to be a lawyer just like yourself, because I had already studied something else before. And I asked him exactly that question. I said, what's the difference between United States law and Mexican law? And I was just in first semester when he gave me the answer, so I couldn't understand it then. He said, United States law is like a set of blocks to build something. You choose the blocks and you start building whatever you're going to build. And Mexican law is more like a huge mansion full of little secret gateways to get from one room to the other, and many ways to get to the same place. And when he said that, I thought this metaphor is horrible. I don't understand anything he said. But after all my legal studies and these 6 years of running this firm, I can tell you he was pretty right on the spot. The reason why Mexican law is so complicated is because Mexican law, first of all, it's coded. Everything is in codes, in books of articles published by the Congress. So no lawyer should give you an answer to a question that is, oh, well, maybe it's like this, or maybe it's like that. No, they should tell you Article 136 says this, because everything is coded. The problem is that there's so many codes There's just for opening a company, a lawyer should know by heart the labor code, which is a federal labor law. They should know the territorial code of Guanajuato. They should know the code of commerce of the federation, the law of commercial entities, the law of credit titles, because usually there's something related to credit titles and companies. He should also know the regulations for your municipality in regards to the use of the soil, which is a very important thing for a commerce entity. He should know the code of taxes, the law for capital gains tax, the law for aggregate value tax, and so on. And so like so many laws, but everything is written. So if this guy really studied all the law, when you ask him a question, he should be able to answer with the article. Like he should be able to tell you, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is the article that says that you're supposed to do that. But he also needs to understand how that article plays a harmonic concert with all the other articles in different codes for different things. Because so one question that everybody has: should I give my workers IMSS, which is the social insurance for the country? That question is answered by using the federal law, the federal labor law, the federal law for social insurance, the code of taxes, the law of capital gains tax, and the code of commerce. If you don't know by heart those 5 books, and they're big books of laws, if you don't know them by heart, you shouldn't be answering that question, because IMSS, it's a matter of the federation impacting all these laws at the same time. So, and anybody that tells you, well, it's not usual in Mexico to give IMSS to workers, that person is like, get as far away as you can from that person in regards to legal consultation, because that person is not giving you the exact answer that a lawyer needs to give you. Which articles apply and why do you need to do this, right?
That makes sense. I mean, I know you refer to that because I've seen him in action, and I do think that that's a great analogy about how the differences are between the US and here, because it does feel like it is very difficult to get, as I said to you before, a straight answer. And I think it's important for us to not take someone else's kind of like lightness on the matter as the final answer to things. You know, I've consulted with other attorneys who were way just kind of like, and this is why I work with Raul, because it's like, no, this is what you have to do. So I think if you do come to Mexico and you are looking to start anything, I just made a joke with him, like selling crackers and cheese on the corner. Like, you really want to make sure that you get the information correct, especially if you're not fluent, or maybe you haven't been here for a long time. Maybe you just kind of, got here, or you've been just kind of here and living more as a temporary resident, that it's important to hire someone, vet that person, take time to ask them about their experience, and then, move forward with whatever it is. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring him on, and also for him to talk about, why there's seriousness there, because he sees it every day, right? We don't see anything until something happens, maybe, or we hear about something. But I wanted to ask you, like, what do you see for the differences for foreigners starting a business versus someone that's from Mexico?
I think the only difference is the intuition. Mexicans already know that they need to get certain documents ready, certain permits approved. So they will go into any business already having an intuition that they need to get these things, or maybe knowing that the business they're going to enter into might not be as supervised as other businesses. So they might risk it for a little while before they get the permits, right? So Mexicans will have that intuition immediately. Whereas I see a lot of foreigners come to the country and they don't have that intuition. So they start their ventures without even thinking, oh, I need to get a permit for this. Or sometimes even they get permits that they're not supposed to get. Like, I've seen that also happen. Like, Mexico doesn't regulate, this is a good example. Mexico doesn't regulate the brokerage business. So brokers, real estate agents, there's not a federal regulation for that. There is a national association of brokerage that tries to look like it's mandatory to be a part of that, right? But no broker in Mexico has to be affiliated to any type of association. Actually, the law says that the corredores, the brokers, they don't represent any of the parties, and their only work is to introduce them, which means they have no liability at all. They're not supposed to be doing contracts. They're not supposed to be giving you advice. They're only supposed to present you, introduce you to the potential seller. And if the transaction happens, you owe them the commission that you agreed in the first talk or whatever, right? So, but I've seen many agents be taking these courses and these certifications from different associations so that they can be an agent in Mexico. But their office, the office where they work, has no permit by the city, no permit by the state. They don't pay their taxes. Their employees are not in the social insurance. So like all the real laws are broken. And the one that is not such a real law, it's more like a custom habit. That one is the one that took all their time. And that's a lack of intuition, especially because I see this a lot in foreign brokers. I don't see any Mexican broker making this mistake, or almost none, but I do see many foreign brokers, foreign agents, taking a lot of care, a lot of time to make sure they have their certifications in order with certain associations, but they don't have any of the actual legal requirements met in regards to city permits and things like that, right? So
what would be an example of like requirements for a broker who is a foreigner, but you said it's not regulated? Like what would be, because I know there are quite a few realtors here that are not Mexican. They're from other countries, mostly the US. What would be like examples of that?
So first of all, it's not by law that you need to have a contract with your client. And the law says that if you don't have a written contract with your client, you have a verbal contract. So like it's one of the two, but you always have a contract, right? But it would be so much better if all brokers had written contracts with their clients. And that way, both parties understand exactly what they're getting from the real estate brokerage contractual relation, okay? But now, if you're selling homes in Mexico, this is a common mistake. Well, I just sold a home in Mexico and I was paid 6% of commission. But because the money never came to Mexico because both buyer and seller were in the United States, I shouldn't pay taxes to the Mexican tax service. Well, that's wrong. The Mexican tax law clearly states that any income generated in a Mexican source pays taxes regardless of you being Mexican, not being Mexican, money coming into the country, money not coming into the country. So because the property that created this commission is located in Mexico, you're supposed to pay taxes for your commission, right? So the law also says that in the first 15 days of the next month after you get this money, you're supposed to do a provisional declaration of taxes and pay a provisional percentage out of what you got. And then by the end of the year, you're supposed to do your yearly declaration. And if you overpaid, you get some money back. If you didn't overpay, then you pay whatever is left, whatever else you have to pay. And if you're a foreigner, you overpaid, you cannot get the money back unless you register as a local taxpayer. So the provisional one, it's final when you're a foreigner. But I see a lot of real estate agents who really believe in their hearts, I don't have to pay taxes because money never came into the country. And they're just putting themselves in a position with a huge liability that one day the Mexican tax service takes action. And I mean, we see it every other month. Mexican tax service going against anyone, horrible. It's the worst. They have all the power. The Constitution is behind them, and they can really make your life a mess. And they have treaties with United States Tax Service to be able to work in both countries, like they exchange information. And really, you never want the Mexican tax service communicating with the US tax service to do an investigation on you. So that would be one of the requirements. If this real estate agent that we're imagining right now, if he has a personal assistant, well, that personal assistant is supposed to have IMSS. And then they will tell me, and I've seen this so many times, IMSS is social insurance, by the way. But they will tell me, no, but my personal assistant is also from the USA. So that labor contract doesn't apply to Mexican standards. If the work is happening in Mexico, you're supposed to give them social insurance. Well, but she already told me that she doesn't want social insurance. Okay, you're opening yourself to liability for this person to sue you after 3 or 4 years of labor relationship, and you could lose a lot of money for this lawsuit because there's going to be a different consequences for you not fulfilling the labor law. So that's the second thing that I think any real estate agent should take care of. Their employees should have IMSS and any other type of social insurance.
So I have a question about that. So when you say their employees, do you mean like someone who is full-time, a certain amount of minimum hour, just
employees in Mexico,
part-time, anyone?
Employees in Mexico are defined by the labor federal law. Person who gives you work in exchange of a salary, and it's subordinate to you. It doesn't say 2 hours, 8 hours. It says person who's giving you work in exchange of a salary, and it's subordinate to you. Why it's subordinate? Because a teacher who is only going to your school to give one class, and he has freedom of how to give that class, he's not a subordinate. Or like a lawyer that is giving you legal advice, he's not your subordinate. He's giving you a service. So of course he's getting something similar to a salary, but he's not your subordinate. He doesn't respond to you, he's giving you a service. But if you have a personal assistant, and you tell her at what time she gets into the office, at what time she leaves, all her agenda is dictated by you. She's your subordinate and you're paying her for that. It doesn't matter what the contract says. She is your worker. She's supposed to have IMSS. You're supposed to keep taxes on her behalf and pay them yourself to the federation. And a lot of when I say these things to people that are not from here, many of them will go and say things like, well, I don't want to open a business in Mexico, then this is too hard. It's not that hard. We all do it. It's just we have it embedded in our system. We already know. First thing to open a business, get an accountant, put everybody in names, start paying taxes, right? And for us, it's double nature.
Right.
I guess if we also went to United States, we would be surprised by many things that we couldn't even imagine we have to do before we open the business, right? It's the same in here. And you being a foreigner, I think it's very important that you always consult with a lawyer because that intuition is not part of yourself, at least not yet. So, and what you said before, there'll be many lawyers who are just looking for a retainer and they won't even know what they're talking about. So you do need to vet lawyers. The best way to do it, ask people, hey, have you had a good experience with this guy? What service did he give you? Are you only referring it to me because he's your friend, or did he actually give you good legal service? And that should be more than enough to be able to know that this person is going to help you. And also the answers, he needs to give you the code. Oh, there's
there's the bell. So we're literally looking at the church that everybody knows and sees. So I hope you can hear us. Let us know in the chat. By the way, you can introduce yourself and tell us where you are. I didn't say that earlier. I'll just give it a pause.
It's only announcing that it's 6:30 right now.
Oh, right. So at 7 it'll be even. Okay, there we go. Got that out of the way. Well, wait.
It's maybe a few more.
You would know because you work here. So this is his office. Really beautiful building. So yeah, I think that's great information. I think even just having question marks about people who work for you and clean for you 2 days a week, does all of that apply to that as well? Every single, okay, so I know there are tons of people who have folks who work for them, and that's not something that we're familiar with, is knowing, and maybe just even thinking too, they're only here X amount of days or a week, and they're only giving me whatever. But so no, I think it's good that you're telling us this.
And if you're really trying to hire someone and making sure that she's not your worker, then you need to design a contract with a lawyer and make sure certain criteria is met. Like my gardener, it's always a good example. And I love using my gardener as an example. My gardener works for more than 20 clients. The law says that because he works for so many people, he's never a worker anymore. He's providing a service. He's like his own little company. So he started getting less clients when COVID started. There was a point where I was going to be his only client. So I immediately told him, if you don't get more clients, I'm going to have to fire you. Because the moment a person depends solely on your income, on the income you're paying him, he becomes your worker according to Mexican law. So if he was a service provider, person, it can't be a company, it has to be a person. That person was your service provider, had many clients. And suddenly after a year, you are his only client now. It's very much likely he's your employee now. According to Mexican law and Mexican jurisprudence, you can avoid this by setting up contracts. But that's something that you like. See, that's exactly the problem. This is so complicated. I went through the years of studying this. So for me, it's second nature. And if you come with hey, you know what? I'm going to start a restaurant and I'm going to have 2 waiters, 1 chef, and I'm going to sell cerveza. I'm not going to sell any alcohol. Okay, I know exactly what I need to do for you. But if you do it yourself and then you get in trouble, not only are you going to be floating in the sea like a cork, you're also going to be paying way more in lawyers than what you would have paid if you went since the beginning to get advice and to make sure a legal firm is behind you. And also that's a big difference. Look for legal firms. If that lawyer is just going to your house, like a pizza lawyer, if it doesn't arrive in 30 minutes, it's free. That guy is probably not the one you want to use right now.
Right.
Let him evolve, let him become a lawyer with a firm. And you can see, like, we have 6 lawyers in our firm, plus the partners. So we pay the salary of 6 lawyers week by week. We're clearly serious about this. And we're not going to disappear next week. So, but I see friends of us that are lawyers too, that they don't even have an office. They're just going to Starbucks to meet with their clients, right?
Pizza.
Be careful. Like the pizza lawyer, maybe he's your friend. Maybe you want to help him become the lawyer that he's going to be one day. That's great. But then take it into your risk, because it is like this type of law. It's something that should be done by firms. We already have a lot of knowledge how to move forward, and we're not just trying to get a retainer to sustain ourselves. We are getting retainers. I'm not saying that we're free, but we're also providing a service and we're being serious about it. So
okay. So in regard to starting a business, and I just want to say welcome, Carla. Yes, SMA next week. Okay. Awesome. In regard to starting a business, so we know, I'll talk about some of the kind of more common businesses we see: a boutique, a small restaurant, maybe. I won't talk about like a bar because I know that involves like licenses for alcohol and things like that. Maybe like an art gallery, Airbnb. What would those steps look like to start as a foreigner in Mexico? And I know the laws are the same, but I think there are 2 sets of laws for if you are a temporary resident versus a permanent resident. Like
for making a company makes no difference.
Okay.
Actually, you could create a company without living in the country. You could send someone with a POA to start a company in your behalf in Mexico.
What's a POA?
Power of attorney. Sorry.
Okay.
You could send someone with a power of attorney to start a company in Mexico. So, or you could be a tourist and decide you're going to start a company in Mexico. You don't need a visa to do your own company. You need a visa to work for somebody else.
Okay.
But when you're creating your own company, the provisions are completely different than, so migration laws don't really apply in the same way. Let's say that you're opening, I'm going to go from very simple to more complex. Let's say that you're opening your own real estate agency, which is an example that I've already given around. You should register to the tax registry as soon as possible.
RFC.
The RFC. And you should register letting the RFC know that you're going to be, your activity is going to be real estate agent. And then right after that, you should go with an accountant so that he tells you how much he's going to charge you to declare your taxes month by month.
And just explain that it has to be monthly.
It's a monthly declaration.
Right.
So below 500 pesos, run away from that accountant. I don't know why he would be charging 500 pesos a month, but run away. It's not going to work. Above 2,000 pesos, run faster. It's too expensive. They're just trying to get money out of you. The market price for the usual declaration of a company in Mexico, an accountant will charge anything between 800 pesos and 1,500 pesos, depending on how much money you're making. That's pretty much it. And accountants usually say, depending on the frog is the size of the rock, which means depending on how much money you make, they're going to bill you a little more. But if they're billing you more than 2,000 pesos per month, something is wrong. And there's better options that are cheaper. We in the firm, we've been considering for many years to hire an accountant and have him in an office and just subcontract with him all of our clients. So we might do that. And if we do it, we're going to be billing it at about 1,200 pesos. And that account is going to be doing the monthly declaration and the payment of IMSS for employees. So get the accountant after you get your RFC. And let's say that this agent is not going to have an office to receive people. She's going to be outside showing homes, using the business centers for each of the properties that this person is going to be selling. Let's say that she's using the offices for the real estate developments that she's selling, okay? Then she doesn't need to get any city permit for doing that. But if she's using soil, she's using a property on the city to do her businesses and inviting people into the property and like having a public office, then she needs a permit by the city, which is called a use of soil permit. If it's something so easy, the permit is going to be easy too. It depends how far you're going from a simple thing, how difficult the permit is going to be, right? So once she has the uso de suelo, the only next thing to do is make sure that the contracts you have and that you're going to be using day by day are already proven by an attorney. And that attorney should give you a contract that you can just change names and use it again without going back to the attorney. Any attorney that tells you, well, I'm going to be billing you X amount of money for every contract you do, and I'll do them all, he's looking for a farm of clients. He wants to farm the clients every month. In this type of law, you should get an attorney that tells you this contract will work for your clients. I've made it so that you just change the names and you can use it again and again and again. And if any day something more complex comes down the way, you can send it to me and you should be fine. Okay. Let's say that this is something more complicated. Let's say that you're opening a coffee shop. No alcohol, but you're going to have a public place. You're going to have customers walking in and you're going to have employees. Okay, once you have your RFC and you go to your accountant, you let him know you're going to have employees. So he's going to bill you a little more to manage the paying of the IMSS of the employees because you're going to have to pay social insurance for the employees. Once you do that, you need a lawyer to make sure that your rent contract is good, that the landlord is not taking advantage of you on your business. Because if not, you're going to be working for the landlord, and that's not something you want. Once you have that, you need a city permit for the coffee shop, a uso de suelo, but you also need a permit by Protección Civil protection, which is an entity of the city that makes sure that people don't get hurt in your business. And if your business is too big, that's very expensive. If your business is little, a little coffee shop, that's very simple. So because like things like let's just think of a few requirements. Like you need fire extinguishers for every certain amount of meters. So if you have like the restaurant we have, it's too wide, so the amount of fire extinguishers is huge, and I never thought they were so expensive. So after getting those, like we've already made a big investment on that. We had to keep getting things to make sure everybody was protected, and then Protección Civil will come into your place and they'll finally certify you that you're safe for people to be in your place. The ecology department also has to certify you that your activity is not polluting the city. So there's, once you have a bigger business, there's many places that you need to go and fulfill things. Most firms should charge you about $1,000, maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000 in some cases, to make sure you go through all of these things. So it's not that expensive. Like you're going to be paying in salaries probably twice that every month. So it's not bad that you get some money for making sure a firm is behind you to open up your shop, right?
Right.
And then there's something called the use of soil with conditions. And those are all the ones that are harder on the city, like alcohol licenses, like hospitals, developments like fraccionamientos, condominiums. All of those, they need to go through special requirements. If you're those and hotels, I forgot, hotels and Airbnbs and all of those, they're also conditioned use of suelos. So all of those have to go through the city council. So that means that by the end of your procedure, there's going to be a vote between 12 council members to decide if your business is going to open. So if you're in a conditioned use of soil, you should really have a legal firm that knows those council members, that can help you convince those council members to vote that your business can open. Yeah, I think that would be it.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. So, one of the things that I think, again, as I said to you before, that a lot of foreigners may not know is, there's the Airbnb platform, and then it's like, at least here in Guanajuato, because I've spoken to some other people that haven't heard of some of the things that you're telling me about, and they have their, thing that they're doing wherever they are. But it's just kind of like knowing that there's a lot more involved than just hosting it and paying taxes per se. There's like a lot of other things that could be involved. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on, because I just think that there's a different way to do different types of businesses, right? There's a lot of information that you need to know. And again, depending on the size and what type of business it is, then you would need someone who really knows what they're talking about. And I think that a lot of the common comments that people get here in Mexico as foreigners as well is, the trust factor. There's a lot of the untrust of attorneys in general, even in the United States, but also accountants. And I think even kind of like the viewpoint from an attorney versus an accountant is also kind of like, it doesn't always maybe give the impression that you're working together. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think that people kind of maybe shy away from certain things or getting proper advice because maybe they feel like the advice isn't going to be clear. I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
I think, well, let's just first let the parroquia do her thing, just so that you can listen to me without distractions.
The cake church.
That right now is telling us that it's 15 before. Quarter to
7.
Quarter to
For
7.
us. Yeah, but they can hear us, and now we have the mariachi band.
Now you can hear the mariachis.
It's like a full party over here.
Yeah. I think. See, I have a radio show in in the local radio every Thursday.
Every Thursday, local radio, what station here, just so we know?
SQ San Miguel, everybody knows SQ San Miguel here.
SAQ.
And the radio show starts at 12:30. It's a 30-minute radio show. And the reason we started that radio show is because a lot of people don't understand many things in the law, and the more they understand about the law, the more they can use the rights the law gives them, right? So the other day, one of the owners of the radio said to me, "We're very happy. We've just turned 1 year on the radio show." So he says, "We're very happy that you are the anchor, because we've had lawyers come to the radio, and after they talk, nobody understands anything." It's not because those lawyers are bad people. It's because the law is very difficult to understand. Like Mexican law, it's really tough. One of the lawyers I deal with the most, he's like a great friend of the firm and a father figure to myself. He's a lawyer in the United States. And I can see how surprised he gets with how complex Mexican law is. But it makes sense. Like, it's not, a lot of people feel like they're being defrauded by Mexican law. It's not. Like, the law is pretty clear. It's coded. You just need to know the law and follow it. It's not, there's no precedent system. There's no what other courts said before, and that changes everything. The law is coded, whatever the code says, but the codes are pretty complex, and it's a huge amount of information. Like, it's books and books and books. Like, Michelle can see right now my desk is full of books that I need to read this week. So, and all of these books are legal books because
I see them.
Because they reform many laws on the last 2 or 3 years. They're finally publishing the finished products. So for lawyers, all the law change again. So we buy the books and we read them again and make sure that we understand what's happening. So if you go to a lawyer and he gives you an answer that you don't understand, part of it could be he's not a good lawyer. Part of it could be he just doesn't know how to explain. Like, it's not the same to understand the law and explain the law. Before I studied law, I studied communication, and I was a journalist for many years. So I've always known how to explain things. It comes natural to me. So in the radio, of course, I can make things a little more simple and explain things with metaphors and things like that. My answer, if it's more simple, doesn't make it more truthful than a more complicated answer by a older attorney with, one of those sacred cows, we call them, of attorneys who they talk and most people don't understand anything they're saying, right?
Sacred cows.
But regardless of you not understanding, you should find a lawyer you trust and you should follow his advice. I think that's very important. Follow his advice.
What would you recommend to someone if they weren't coming to you, but just the audience on how you would look for an attorney? Like, what do you recommend?
First of all, if this attorney, it's answering everything through WhatsApp. By the way, this is a big change in my mind, because 3 or 4 years ago, I would say exactly the opposite. But if this attorney is giving you all the answers in WhatsApp, he's not making formal meetings with you, and he seems like he's everywhere and not focusing in your case, there's probably a problem there. Like, you want an attorney that gives you an appointment, tells you the following steps, and does them in the right amount of time. If that attorney tells you, "Oh, don't worry about it, just pay and I'll fix it next week," run away as fast as you can. Mexican law is as slow as you can. Like, it's the slowest thing you can imagine. Like, if it went any slower, we would be going back in time. That's how slow Mexican law is. And then there's the social tissue part of the legal profession. Many lawyers won't talk bad about another lawyer because of the social tissue of the city. So be careful of getting one lawyer to tell you if another lawyer is good or not. You should talk to clients. You should talk to people that have been represented by them. But that also becomes a problem. Like, if you go around and you ask my name around in the city, we litigate. We're mostly litigators. So in this firm, we go to court and we wipe the floor with the counterpart. We are hated by a lot of people. Like, all of our counterparts hate us. So
Heard about you, Raul.
It's a complicated matter. Like, I think it's very complicated. You need to talk to customers and make sure that you're not talking to somebody that was sitting on the other side on the litigation by us or by any other lawyer. Like if a guy tells you, I hate that lawyer, you need to make sure that he was not the counterpart of that lawyer because maybe he lost to that lawyer, right? So it's also something that I can tell you about our profession. It's a very high anxiety profession. Most lawyers, they're having anxiety problems every day. So they don't have, it's not that they don't want to talk to you, or it's not that they don't like to spend time with you, or they don't like to answer the phone, or it's mostly that they're rushing through the day to finish their pending items in a very high stressful routine, especially if they're litigation lawyers. There's many firms in the city that don't do litigation, even if their life depended on it. They do closings, they do contracts. Those guys are living the dream. They're pretty calm down. There's many of us that are doing litigation, which we are in a big anxiety routine. So that can also, like, you should find your feet again. And what I'm trying to say, and I always say this in the radio show, you should find a lawyer you trust, and then follow his advice. If it turns out he's not that good, you can always change lawyers.
That's true.
Just find a lawyer that you feel he's telling you the truth, he's showing you the articles, you like the way he works. Pay him whatever he's saying that well, as long as it's not too much, pay him the fees and trust that person. And you should be fine. And always put aside some money for the lawyer. Don't enter into the mindset of, well, I'm not gonna pay the lawyer. Nobody pays lawyers here in Mexico. I'm gonna do it myself. It can be very expensive to fix a problem.
Especially if you're fluent in Spanish.
Oh yeah, if you're not fluent, and that's also like the best lawyer in the city. It's my partner Jose. My firm, it's two firms in one. So Ramirez Riva, which is in this office, and Garcia Alvarez, which is 3 blocks up on the city. But Jose has his own clients. I have my own clients, and we coordinate so that we don't have clients in opposite sides, and we help each other. And he's probably the best civil attorney in the whole state. Very expensive also. He charges a lot. In my office, we charge a quarter of what he charges. So he doesn't speak in English. So most of the best lawyers in town, they won't be able to take your case because they don't speak English. Like and that's also a problem because many bad lawyers speak English. And I don't want to say any names, but many bad lawyers speak English. So
we don't need to say that.
So be careful.
I have personal experiences with not so great.
Be careful, get recommendations, and learn to decide when those recommendations are truthful and when those recommendations are just out of the hate lawyers usually get in this.
Yeah. So I have a question that's just came to me. You know, you've been doing this work for a while. As a whole and as in general, do you believe in the system here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you feel like it really is fair, it works, or do you feel like it's always kind of like pulling teeth?
I think there's a generation above my generation that try to fix everything with corruption. Try to fix everything by giving what we call mordidas, which is a bribe. I think that generation left a broken system. But the new generation, lawyers who are 30 and below, they're also working on the authority side. They're also working for the judges or are judges themselves. They're also clerks, and they're also lawyers. And all of us, we hate bribes. We hate the corrupt system. We want things to work the way the law says they have to work. And because especially the federal system, the federal legal system, it's mostly young people. It's less corrupt. There's corruption, but it's less corrupt. And once you're able to get away from the corruption, the system is beautiful. Especially if you do social law, like we do a lot of social law. We represent many poor people in the city. And it's just very nice to see the poor people being reivindicated by the judicial system. But we also manage the three biggest litigations in San Miguel for real estate.
Mm.
We have an embargo on a full housing fraccionamiento, housing development. And I can tell you in those very high profile, corruption is their usual token. Like we saw a bribe given in the court and it was millions of pesos. We saw it, like we had to put a criminal complaint about it. That's how bad it is. So it is a difficult system. And I'm not saying that we are the only ones with bribes. I know that there's many stories about bribes in judicial systems all around the world. It's something very sad that's happening in many countries. In Mexico, it's happening too. It used to happen more, and now the new generation, we're fighting to get away from those practices and protect the people, especially the poor people, the people who don't have the money to be able to go into a circuit of corruption, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer, because I think that that's a lot of concern that foreigners have in general. I get that question a lot, not just about necessarily from a bribe standpoint, but kind of like, if I get pulled over, the cops are trying to ask me for money, blah, blah, blah. This isn't just a foreigner thing, like Mexican experience this as well. So it happens. And I do think that that's a good, fair answer to give from your perspective as an attorney, what you kind of feel strongly about with the system. So I don't want to hold Raul like forever, because like you said, his work is super stressful, but I want to share your info in case someone is coming. First of all, if you're interested in, do you just help with RFCs, or is it more of like a package if someone wants to do a business?
Let's quickly talk about the RFC, because I think
let's talk about it. And if you all have questions, please put them in the chat. Go ahead.
The RFC, everybody started talking in the beginning of the year. Oh, it's mandatory to register now, and I'm gonna have to pay taxes in Mexico. That's not what happened. What happened is the government wants 18-year-olds to pay taxes. So they changed the law to say any inhabitant of Mexico above 18-year-olds have to be registered in the tax service so that they pay taxes. But the government never intended that now the foreigners need to pay taxes. But the law was drafted in a way that forced that every person inhabitant of the country is registered so that they can pay taxes.
Okay.
So first thing to understand, the objective of the change in the law was not you. So if it was not you, the probabilities of being audited or prosecuted even for not having an RFC are zero, almost, like they're almost zero. Especially if you don't make any activities in Mexico. So I know many firms, when they saw the new reform, they immediately started putting ads of $500 and I'll give you your RFC. Okay. I mean, it's one meeting in the tax service. Lawyers can't be inside. We can walk you to the entrance, but once you're in, only translators can be in. So you need to tell that person, this guy's going to translate. But if this guy doesn't speak English, that person's probably not going to be allowed to go in, because he's supposed to be the person on the authority. That's it. And there's a big sign in there that says, RFCs are free. So why are you paying $500 for someone to hook you up with an appointment so that you register your RFC? You could do it yourself with a translator. You know how many AI translators there are. You could probably log into an AI translator, translate the website of the tax service, get your appointment, then go there and try to get some help by the tax agent so that they give you your RFC. And once they give you your RFC, they're going to ask you, and what's your economical activity? And you're going to say, I have no economical activity. They're going to say, well, why are you getting an RFC? Because that agent doesn't understand the change in the law, doesn't understand that the law changed and now you have to get an RFC. So you need to remind that person, I'm only getting an RFC because the law says I need to get one, but I have no economical activity. I have no fiscal obligations. And so you get your nice certificate that says no fiscal obligations and this is your RFC. Why is it important that you get it? Because if you own property, it's 7 p.m. right now, so you can hear now my our beautiful parroquia.
Yes, too bad you can't see it. There's no way to flip the screen, so just have to hear the bells.
There you go. So,
And the trumpets in the background. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and the mariachi trumpets. So if you own property in Mexico, when you sell the property, you're gonna have to give your RFC to the notary for the capital gains tax of you selling property. So if you have a property, you need to get your RFC because it's gonna be impossible to sell your property without one. And especially if you already have the buyer there and you're gonna have to make him wait a few more months to get your RFC, you might not close anymore and you lose the buyer. So get the RFC. But if you're only a temporary resident, you're only gonna be here for 6 more months, don't even worry about it.
Yeah,
Like, but if you're gonna live the rest of your life in here, fulfill your obligation of getting an RFC. How much would a firm have to charge? I don't know. Like, we don't like to do it. Our service, we do a full service of setting you up your company in Mexico. And, but I'm sure that some firms will do it. If they're trying to charge you $500 just to get you the appointment and walk with you to the thing, don't do it.
no, because it's pretty, I don't say it's simple, because you all helped, but it wasn't necessarily, when I say simple, meaning you have to go online first. You have to apply, you got to wait for a date and all these other things, and then you got to get a code and whatever, and everything's coming in Spanish. It's not a big deal because you can go on Google Chrome and it does translate for you. But going to the actual office, it is a free service, but it's always good. I think we feel as foreigners a little more comfortable to make sure that, everything was kind of done. And I'll say in San Miguel, my experience was very good. Like they were very friendly, and there was actually two of the three people that were there that spoke English, a little bit of English. That's not necessarily going to be the case all the time, but it wasn't complicated. But I do think it's a smart idea. Now, do you need one of those if you're buying or selling a car? Just because I've had people ask me that, and I don't know, because when I bought my car, nobody asked me.
When you buy a car from a dealership, they're gonna ask you for your RFC. And it's gonna be next to impossible to buy that car from the dealership without an RFC.
Okay.
But if you buy a used car, it's not gonna be so usual that the seller demands the RFC. He should, because he needs to write off he needs to declare that he made a loss when he sold the car, right? And he's not gonna be able to declare that without issuing an invoice, and the invoice has to be appointed into an RFC for the buyer. But it will be usual that the seller doesn't care because he doesn't fulfill all of his fiscal obligations. Again, big companies, they fulfill all of their obligations because they're audited by the tax service every month. A guy that works as a chef in a restaurant selling his car, he probably doesn't even know that he needs to do fiscal obligations when he sells his car. So
yeah, okay. So if someone were interested in, starting a business, or even maybe buying real estate, that's something that your office kind of provides an umbrella service for, correct?
yes, we do a how do you call it in English? Not vetting, it's due diligence. We
Okay.
do a due diligence service.
Mhm.
And in this due diligence service, we make sure that the person who's selling you the property has all of the requirements to sell that property, that the contract protects you to the degree that you want to be protected. I know that sometimes buyers enter into negotiations and they have to yield a lot of their rights to be able to secure a better price. We will explain you in this due diligence the risks that you're taking if you're taking any risks. And we'll walk you through it until you get into your closing and you get your escritura by a notary. And we'll also explain you how hard it is to get an escritura, so that when the notary takes a year, you are not that surprised. Because closing in Mexico is not like closing in the United States. It's not blockchain technology. It's blocked, but it's not blockchain. It takes a long time to do a closing in Mexico.
Really? Why is that?
Well, we follow the Roman system. So when you buy a property, many authorities need to be notified and they need to clear it. And if you're a foreigner, you need to renounce your right to invoke your country as a defender which is a procedure you have to do in front of the foreign ministry, and it takes 3 months. Just that takes 3 months.
Wow.
At least during the pandemic, I haven't done that. I haven't done it once since. Oh, but I've been waiting. No, I've been waiting at least 1 month and a half already for one. So at least it's right now 1 month and a half. I'm counting. So
Okay. Hi, Dixie. Welcome. So what's like the differences between an attorney and a notary? Because in the US, we have notaries just to get seals on things. And I've been told, and I could be wrong, or those pieces of information may be off, that notaries are most kind of above an attorney kind of status or situation in Mexico. Is that accurate?
No,
or-
it's not.
No. So
I
what's
mean,
like, what do they do?
notaries are attorneys.
Okay.
The only difference is they have public faith, which means whatever they say they witnessed, when they put that in a deed, it's a proven fact.
Okay.
But notaries make mistakes all the time, just like any other attorney. They defraud their customers. There's 2 notaries from Irapuato got jail time, I think, last month, or they're being prosecuted by the district attorney because they defrauded hundreds of people.
Mhm.
A very famous notary from San Miguel went to jail for 9 years
Wow.
for defrauding people. Mistakes by notaries are as common as contractual mistakes from normal attorneys. So, of course, becoming a notary involves doing a graduate studies on notaries and passing a special exam by the government. So, in some states, that should make notaries a little more knowledgeable. I respect notaries a lot. I have very good friends that are notaries. But the profession of notaries, I do feel it's very outdated. It's full of lies, of a mysticism that doesn't really exist. They're attorneys with public faith. That's it. It's
Okay.
no different than us. They're supposed to be better than us. They're hardly ever better than us.
Okay, you mean better and more ethical,
They're supposed to be more formal.
formal?
Mexican law, that's something very important. And I give advice to a condo association, and you can't imagine how frustrating it is to see how informal they are. Mexican law is very formal. All of the things that we have to do have to be done with a special formality. Things that you would never think of, like a power of attorney has to have a copy of the ID stamped behind the power of attorney, so that you can prove the photography of the person, and you can also prove the signature of the person. So all those formalities, we expect them. Notaries are supposed to be more formal. Sometimes they're not that formal, and it makes problems. Like our firm litigates, so we understand how bad things can go when something goes into litigation, right? And it's very sad when you see that a notary everybody respects is the one that started the informalities that became a litigation down the drain. Right?
Interesting. So I know this is super basic and maybe a little off, but does your firm have like an area or person that can like review contracts, whether mostly, I guess for my audience would be like contracts that are either houses for sale or someone's buying a home, or rental contracts. Do you all do that? Or I know you personally busy, but do you have like someone else that helps with stuff like this?
Most contractual reviews are done by myself.
Okay.
It's usually very fast, and it's usually very cheap if you come first. Like if you come with a contract before you sign it and you say, I just want you to read it and give me notes so that I can negotiate this, I'll probably just bill you my hour. It'll probably take me an hour to finish the contract.
Okay.
So it should be very simple. It should be a 5,000 pesos problem, not more than that. If you tell me, well, I want you to do the contract yourself and also negotiate the contract with the counterparts, okay, it's going to be a little more expensive, right? But I'm going to tell you one thing: if you do the contract yourself, or you don't get a lawyer involved when somebody else gives you a contract, and in 6 months you don't have your money anymore, but you also don't have a house, the litigation for that is going to be more expensive than going first to us.
Right,
So
right.
way more expensive. Like litigation is always 10 times more expensive than just going to us and say, hey, you review this to make sure that I don't make a mistake.
And time consuming.
And the time, yeah, and the
Yeah.
frustration.
Mhm.
Like we talked yesterday to a potential client, and she was pretty frustrated. She paid a lot of money for a house, and it was never given to her. And she said, "Why am I gonna pay more in legal fees now? Like I've already been defrauded." And it's sad, but like she should have come in the beginning, and we would have told her because we knew actually that development don't buy in that place.
Mhm.
There's more people defrauding that place than anywhere else.
Mhm.
She decided to bring the lawyers once everything was a problem.
Mhm.
And yeah, now litigating is pretty expensive. And by the way, we're usually the cheapest firm because I make a point of trying to bill less. Most lawyers are trying to bill more. I try to understand the law as a social entrepreneurship. So, but even by billing less, it's still a lot of money to litigate. So
Right, and time, because
And
it
time.
moves really slowly.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind. Well, I was gonna share your contact, just, if someone has something, and then you could do just your email contact. So if someone has a question about something that they want to start a business, or I don't know, like they want you to review, or your office to review anything contractual, I think it's worth putting that money in. When I first moved here, I had someone review my lease agreement, and I didn't know you at that time. It was 5 years ago. And it was worth it because it does give you kind of like that sense of, all right, someone looked at this and it's in Spanish. I didn't Google translate it because it's not always going to be accurate. And you also want to make sure that the copy you're signing is what it says and what you think you understand. So I think it's worth, reaching out to Raul about this and getting help. So I've gotten a lot of questions. I guess the conversation was nice and
to the point,
yeah, exactly. So let me see. Give me what's your email?
Raul at
Uh-huh.
Ramirez Riva.
Okay, you type that.
Yeah, sure. Ramirez Riva. Oh,
No, I did that. Perfect.
that is my personal email. So
Okay, perfect. So if you have questions, and he's very responsive. I've been working with you for a while now, and very happy with just kind of the knowledge that I've gotten overall. I think that just understanding things better has been super helpful. And I do think, just you being in San Miguel and having more than just one specific area of expertise, it's sort of like you need help with business, you need a little bit of help with getting set up and buying something, you need a little bit of help, maybe even if you get into trouble with the law for any reason, hopefully not, but it could happen, so we just wanted to put this out there, you to have a contact. I haven't really found that. I'm sure there's some other people, but we're in Guanajuato, the state of Guanajuato, and you may have an office in Mexico City.
Oh, and by the way, like the legal profession in Mexico is not by state. The laws are by state.
Okay.
But lawyers should be able to go to any state and deal with the law. Like most of the law follows the constitutional obligations, and if it doesn't, then you can fight it. So what I'm trying to say is, if you are in Cancun and you're having trouble, we can probably help you out from here. Most courts are digital now.
Okay.
Most systems are digital now. So, and even if they're not, we can always give you the advice, and then we get a lawyer in Cancun to execute, and we supervise it instead of you going there and trying to supervise the lawyer. So never think that you need to get a lawyer from that city. If you can't find somebody you trust in that city, we're happy to help.
Yeah. And also, even if you're not the one who ends up taking a case, it's like at least being able to point them in the proper direction or get them to the right, people. Because again, I think our biggest challenge is if you're not fluent and comfortable with the culture and how things kind of work here, a lot of people kind of shy away. It's not that they want to do it by themselves. I think they do it by themselves because they don't really know where to start. And I think that that's important for people to understand. Like there are people who you can communicate with, Raul's one, and I'm sure there are other people out there, but you just want to make sure that there's some kind of experience that you can investigate for what they are capable of. And as he said earlier, not just asking on Facebook, because Facebook is not really our friend in this regard. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Again, if you have questions, you see his name and email address, and I will be sure for the replay, anyone watching the replay, to put that in the description below. So if you're watching this on after the fact, you can get in contact with him. And I'm Michelle for Expat Life Mexico and Casa ELM. I wasn't here for the last 2 weeks on Wednesday because I had to travel to California. My dad wasn't feeling well, so he was very sick, and I went to see him. Hi, Francis, welcome. We're about to end.
There's a question now.
Yeah, I see. I'm about to get to that in 1 second. So I just wanted to say that thank you guys for, kind of hanging in there for a couple weeks here on Wednesday. So let's see. Kim asks, are wills recognized from the US in Mexico, like a state will? And do you write wills for foreigners living in Mexico? That's a good question.
Okay, so this question has a complex answer. And the reason why usually everybody has a will from Mexico and a will from the United States comes from this complex answer. The law says that your will in the United States is valid in Mexico as long as it has the same level of formality that Mexican wills have. But in the United States, your will, you usually give it in front of a lawyer. In Mexico, you can only give a will in front of a notary. So first thing, like if your will is not done in front of a notary, big problem. Also, Mexico has a national registry of wills, whereas in the United States, there's nothing like that. So the big uncertainty of knowing if a judge in Mexico is going to accept that a US will fulfills the same formality requirements as the Mexican will, that's what prompts everyone to have a Mexican will. Because it's a question you don't want a judge to answer once you're not here anymore. So what you can do is you come to Mexico, you go in front of a notary, and you make a Mexican will for your Mexican assets. And make sure in that will, it is specified that the United States assets will follow the United States disposition and wills. That this will is only for your Mexican assets. Because I know at least 3 cases of Mexican wills who were used to go after US property. And you need to make sure that that doesn't happen either. A Mexican will in a notary should bill you about 8,000 pesos, including the translator. Sorry, if you want our firm to be involved, we bill you a lot more. That's one thing we're very expensive. We've been told at least by 3 or 4 clients that, hey, but you're billing 5 times more than other firms to get involved in wills. Yes, but we're giving you the safety and making sure that once you die, your property is going to end with whoever you said it was going to end. Because you can't imagine how bad it can go. Like if you heard about the Becker or Beckman houses, one of the 2 last names, there's many.
We're here in San
Yeah,
Miguel.
there's many horrible stories around San Miguel of inheritances going crazy because a legal firm was not involved to make sure that the will was correct. So
what is your starting price? Because I'm assuming, depending on how much you have to be involved in estate planning, what is your base price, just so people know?
So if you only have like a normal house and no, like it's not a big inheritance, we'll bill you about 20,000 pesos and we'll include the notary fees. Like it'll be a flat fee of 20,000 pesos. But if you're very lucky in your life and you're one of those foreigners who own $1 million properties in this city, it will be pretty expensive. And those cases, we usually bill them by person, but we'll make sure that whatever you want with your property, that's exactly what's going to happen.
By the way, 20,000 pesos is about $1,000 US dollars-ish, depending on the exchange rate. And I will tell you this, that I recently paid someone, well, not just recently, about a year ago, someone to do my estate planning, like a redo and readjust, and it was $1,000 US, but it's on the US side. So I think that's fair. Just saying from a foreigner standpoint. And if you have a lot of things here, now maybe some people don't want to necessarily spend that kind of money because they're just renting, they're probably renting a furnished place and, you know, but I think if you have things here and, you know, it's a value, you have to kind of decide, even if you don't own a home, let's say you own other things, you have a bank account, I think it's important to have that service. So, yeah. Anyway, we don't have too many other questions. I see a couple people joined later, but we're wrapping it up. So thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for being here and educating. Hi, Jessica. Thank you. And educating everyone on, educating everyone, but educating us on bits and pieces of the law, but mostly if you're interested in starting a business, if you go back and you watch the video, for those who might have missed it, there's a lot of really good information. And I'll make sure that Raul's contact information is in the description box and you can reach out to him if you have questions and you want to hire their law firm for whatever in Mexico. He's definitely knowledgeable and so is his staff. And I'm really grateful for all the help. And I always say my lawyer's a beast, so go get him. Hey, everyone's, thank you. Thank you so much, H. But we're going to wrap it up. So thank you all for being here. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I appreciate my audience. And yes, my dad's doing better. That's why I wasn't here. I had to kind of up and go. He's doing much better, but thank you all. Appreciate you and have a fantastic night. Ciao. Thanks. All right, hold on. Hold on.